The automatic glass doors of the Maplewood post office flew open with force as Karen Peaton charged through them, her high heels striking the linoleum floor in a rapid, furious rhythm. Her typically impeccable blonde bob was noticeably tousled, and her complexion had flushed to a deep, concerning crimson. She strode directly to the service counter, pushing ahead of the 3 patients already in line. "I insist on speaking with your manager right this instant," she declared, in a piercing tone that seemed capable of cracking glass. The postal worker behind the counter, a composed employee named Denise, glanced up from her terminal with well-honed composure. "Ma'am, I'm happy to assist you with whatever problem you're facing," Denise replied calmly. "My mail has not been delivered for 3 entire weeks," Karen snapped, each syllable laced with personal outrage. "3 weeks? Can you even comprehend how many critical items I've missed? My bank statements, my Homeowners Association letters, all of it." Denise offered an understanding nod and started entering data. "Allow me to look that up in our system. Could you provide your full name and address?" Karen recited the details sharply, her polished nails drumming restlessly against the countertop. The sharp tapping reverberated throughout the otherwise silent post office, while the other patrons observed the unfolding drama. "There it is," Denise noted, her brows lifting just a fraction. "Per our records, all correspondence addressed to Karen Peaton at 4567 Burwood Drive is currently being forwarded." "Forwarded? That's absurd. I never submitted any such request." Denise adjusted her screen slightly toward Karen for verification. "It indicates here that the new forwarding address is 9876 North Glacier Street, Anchorage, Alaska 99502. The blood rushed from Karen's face so abruptly that the onlookers instinctively shifted backward, concerned she might collapse. Her mouth gaped open and shut repeatedly, resembling a stranded fish. Who approved this?" she managed in a hushed tone, though her voice soon sharpened again. Denise navigated further through the records. "The application was submitted by," she hesitated, peering closer at the display, "Jake Sullivan. Does that name sound familiar?" Karen's eyes expanded dramatically, like oversized saucers. Her fingers clenched the edge of the counter until her knuckles blanched. That little. But allow me to rewind and explain how the situation developed. Because this account, like every satisfying story of retribution, began with an act of remarkable pettiness. My name is Jake Sullivan, and I'm a 35-year-old remote tech consultant. 3 months earlier, I relocated to what I believed would be my ideal residence on Birchwood Drive in the suburbs of Cedar Falls. The community appeared idyllic, peaceful roadways, established trees, and homes with that warm, settled charm. What I failed to realize was that I had entered the territory ruled by Karen Peaton, the self-proclaimed monarch of the Burwood Estates Homeowners Association. My initial week in the new home was delightful. I organized my workspace, positioned my furnishings, and even introduced myself to several residents who appeared truly friendly. On that Saturday morning, I chose to mount my brand new mailbox. It featured a contemporary brushed steel finish with an understated blue highlight that complemented my home's exterior trim. Nothing extravagant, simply a design with more individuality than the uniform black units along the curb. I was securing the final screw when I detected the deliberate sound of a throat being cleared at my back. Turning around, I saw a woman in her mid-40s positioned on my grass, arms folded tightly, dressed in what I would soon recognize as her standard attire, crisp khakis, a coral jacket, and a facial expression implying she had just tasted something exceptionally bitter. "Pardon me," she stated, in a manner that conveyed no actual apology. "I'm Karen Peaton, president of the Burwood Estates, HOA." I rose, brushing dirt from my jeans, and offered my hand. "Jake Sullivan. Pleasure to meet you." She regarded my extended palm as if it carried germs before granting the shortest conceivable contact. "I notice you've put in a different mailbox." "Yes, it arrived yesterday." "Looks sharp, doesn't it?" Her mouth tightened until her lips almost vanished. "Unfortunately, that mailbox violates our HOA design guidelines. Section 4, subsection B of the covenants explicitly requires that all mailboxes be black or dark green, limited to standard USPS-approved styles. I looked at my no installation, then at her. But it is USPS approved. I verified Thabafaretto purchase. That might be true, she responded with a flick of her hand. Yet it fails to align with our community standards. You must take it down at once and replace it with an acceptable version. Listen, Karen, I began, striving to remain cordial. I thank you for informing me of the regulations, but this mailbox satisfies every postal and legal specification. It's the correct height, properly positioned from the street, and officially sanctioned by the service. The color is precisely the issue, she cut in. We uphold specific standards in Burwood Estate standards that protect our home values and guarantee a unified aesthetic. That object, she pointed at my mailbox as though it were hazardous material, is a visual blight. I inhaled deeply, reminding myself that I was new here and preferred not to ignite immediate conflict. I get where you're coming from, but I truly appreciate this mailbox. It has a clean, professional vibe and brings some personality. Perhaps we can bring it up at the upcoming HOA gathering? Karen's cheeks reddened. The next session is 3 weeks away. As president, I'm informing you directly that that mailbox must be removed, and I'm telling you politely that it's remaining, I answered, my tolerance fading. It complies with all lawful mandates, and honestly, I view the HOA style rules as suggestions when they clash with national postal rules. She fixed me with a prolonged stare, her jaw locked so firmly I feared dental damage. We'll see about that, she uttered at last, then pivoted sharply and returned to her residence 3 houses away. I completed the mailbox setup, assuming the matter was closed. How wrong I was. Over the following 2 weeks, a constant barrage of HOA violation letters arrived, and as you might expect, every single one targeted my supposedly offending mailbox. They nitpicked every detail imaginable, from the shade of the steel to the curvature of the design to the style of the adhesive numbers I had applied. I replied to each notice methodically, attaching printouts of the official USPS guidelines that clearly demonstrated full compliance. The back and forth quickly turned absurd. One morning brought a citation claiming the post was exactly 1 inch over regulation height. I fired back with the federal specifications proving I was comfortably inside the allowed range. The very next day came a complaint about the reflective safety tape. I countered with the USPS's own recommended safety features. Then arrived the morning that shifted the entire conflict. I rose earlier than normal, just after 6 o'clock a.m., intending to retrieve any overnight mail before diving into work. A crucial client contract was due any day. Stepping outside with my coffee steaming in hand, I froze mid-stride. A white SUV sat parked with calculated exactness right in front of my mailbox, not simply nearby, but aligned so precisely that the door was completely inaccessible. The rear bumper hovered perhaps 2 inches away. I knew the vehicle on sight. Karen's immaculate Lexus, complete with its custom HOA board license plate. Circling the car confirmed my suspicion no mail truck could reach the slot. The placement was far too deliberate to be a coincidence. This was intentional sabotage. I marched to her door and knocked firmly. No response. I knocked again, harder. At last, she opened it, already perfectly coiffed and dressed, despite the hour. May I assist you? She inquired with syrupy, false politeness. Your vehicle is completely blocking my mailbox, I stated, struggling to remain calm. She peered past me with exaggerated shock. Goodness, how on earth did that happen? I must have parked there after returning late from our emergency HOA session last night. You know, the one focused on discussing certain non-compliant mailboxes. Karen, please move your car. The carrier will be here soon. She touched her chin in mock contemplation. Actually, I'm heading out shortly for my morning yoga, but I've somehow misplaced my keys. I'll search for them properly when I return tonight. You're attending yoga without your keys? Oh, silly me, I forgot to mention that my friend is driving me. As if perfectly timed, a silver Mercedes glided to the curb. There she is now. We'll chat later. With that, she glided past me, slipped into the passenger seat, and they pulled away, leaving me standing there fuming. I watched them disappear, my coffee cooling untouched. The mail truck passed later that day, slowed, honked briefly, spotted the obstruction, offered me an apologetic shrug through my window, and continued. The harassment persisted daily for the next week. Each dawn revealed Karen's SUV in that identical obstructive position. She always produced a fresh alibi: keys vanished, schedule overrun, engine trouble, even though I could hear the motor purring smoothly when she finally relocated it well after delivery hours. My awaited contract never materialized, nor did any other mail. I attempted dialogue. I appealed to basic decency. I even offered to repaint the mailbox black if she would simply allow normal delivery. She remained unmoved, flashing that same maddening smirk, while inventing new delays. By the start of the second week, my patience had evaporated. I began compiling evidence systematically. Every morning, photographed the blockage with clear timestamps. I recorded our exchanges where permitted by state law. I maintained a thorough journal of every skipped delivery. Then I made an appointment at the post office. The postmaster, a straightforward veteran named Robert Chen, heard my account with mounting alarm. As I presented my organized folder of proof, his face darkened. Deliberately impeding mail delivery constitutes a federal crime, he explained, scanning the images. This agency treats such matters with utmost seriousness. What are my options? I asked. I've exhausted every reasonable approach, but she refuses to cease. Robert leaned back, considering. We could issue her an official cease and desist. We could refer the case to the authorities. He paused, a faint grin emerging. Or there might be a more creative solution. Are you aware of our mail forwarding protocols? Like for people who relocate? Precisely. Normally, strict authorization is required, but he retrieved a hefty procedures binder. Certain emergency clauses exist. When an individual repeatedly creates dangerous or obstructive conditions for carriers at a given address, temporary redirection measures can be authorized. But I don't want my own mail forwarded, I want it delivered here. No, Robert clarified, his grin widening. I'm not suggesting we forward yours. It took a second for his meaning to sink in. Wait, you're saying that if documented intentional interference is occurring, creating a hostile environment for federal mail service, we can reroute correspondence to guarantee safe receipt by the proper party. Naturally, such action would apply only to the individual responsible for the interference. And should that person's mail be redirected to, say, an extremely remote location, Robert merely shrugged. The system accepts any valid U.S. address. After that, it's simply an administrative entry. That same afternoon, I submitted the formal request, attaching every scrap of evidence: photos, audio files, delivery logs, all of it. I framed Karen's repeated obstruction as generating an unsafe workplace for postal employees. For the destination address, I selected, after brief research, the most isolated post office branch in the country, a small facility in Anchorage, Alaska, serving some of the state's most far-flung residents. Approval arrived remarkably quickly. Robert phoned me himself. Redirection commences Monday, he confirmed. Additionally, Mr. Sullivan, postal inspectors will launch a complete investigation into the reported obstruction. Expect contact soon. That weekend, Karen's vehicle occupied its customary blocking spot, but I remained silent. I merely smiled and waved when I noticed her peering from her curtains. Monday dawned, and predictably, her SUV sat in place once more. This time, however, it no longer bothered me. My own mail would route temporarily to the local office for pickup until resolution. Annoying, but short-term. Karen's correspondence, meanwhile, had embarked on its long voyage northward. The initial indication of trouble surfaced roughly a week later. While working in my office with the window ajar, I overheard Karen in her yard, voice rising on a phone call. What do you mean? And my card payment is overdue. I never got any statement. Was it mailed weeks ago? Impossible. I check my box daily. In the days that followed, her outdoor calls grew louder and more desperate. Online orders failed to appear. Favorite magazines stopped coming. Even the HOA newsletters she cherished so dearly disappeared. Whenever our paths crossed, I kept my expression neutral and pleasant. She continued parking in front of my mailbox most mornings, though I observed that she appeared increasingly preoccupied, frequently pacing while heatedly disputing matters with various customer service agents on her phone. The tipping point arrived precisely 3 weeks after the redirection took effect. I was driving back from the post office, where I had collected my accumulated mail, when I spotted Karen stationed beside her own mailbox, rifling through a handful of nothing but junk flyers and circulars. Her customary flawless presentation was beginning to falter, hair slightly disheveled, blazer creased and rumpled. "No actual mail again?" I inquired lightly as I passed by on the sidewalk. She spun toward me, fury flashing in her eyes. "Did you tamper with something?" she demanded in a fierce whisper. "Tamper? How could I possibly influence your mail service?" I responded with feigned innocence. "This is all because of that mailbox dispute, isn't it? You're exacting some kind of payback." I merely shrugged. "Karen, I'm plenty occupied managing my own delivery issues. You know, given that someone persistently blocks my mailbox each morning, I've been forced to visit the post office every day for pickup. Quite disruptive." Her complexion cycled through deepening shades of crimson before arriving at a worrisome violet. "My vehicle happens to stall right in front of your place, and abruptly, my mail ceases arriving. That can't be mere chance. Your vehicle stalls every single morning in the identical position. That's either the most precisely targeted automotive failure imaginable or something altogether different," I remarked evenly. "Perhaps you ought to consult the post office directly. They may offer some clarification, and consult them." She did, which circles us back to the opening scene, with Karen learning of her correspondence's unexpected Alaskan detour. "This is unlawful," Karen yelled at Denise, who retained her professional demeanor with impressive restraint. "You cannot simply reroute a person's mail without their consent." "In fact," Denise replied, producing the relevant paperwork, "this redirection was authorized based on repeated documented interference with delivery operations. An ongoing federal probe is examining potential breaches of Title 18, Section 1701 of the United States Code." "What exactly does that imply?" Karen pressed. "Obstruction of correspondence, ma'am. It qualifies as a federal crime, carrying possible fines of up to $250,000 and imprisonment for up to 6 months. A hush descended over the post office. Even the waiting patrons abandoned any pretense of disinterest. Karen's mouth worked soundlessly, opening and closing without words. I demand that you terminate the forwarding immediately," she eventually stammered. "Regrettably, that's not feasible during an active inquiry," Denise clarified. "Postal inspectors must finalize their examination first. You may submit a formal counterclaim in the interim, but it will require substantiating proof that no obstruction of delivery has occurred on your part." "Proof? What sort of proof?" "The original complaint includes 43 time-stamped images depicting your vehicle obstructing a residential mailbox, 12 audio captures of exchanges in which you acknowledge deliberate parking placement, and affidavits from 3 separate carriers verifying impeded service." Karen's coloring fluctuated wildly from flushed to ashen, and back to flushed. 43 photographs covering every morning, across 6 weeks. "Indeed," Denise affirmed. "Exceptionally comprehensive evidence." Karen reeled out of the post office as if dazed. Neighbors later shared that she spent the remainder of the day frantically consulting attorneys, each of whom delivered the same sobering assessment: tampering with mail delivery constituted a grave federal matter. Faced with such overwhelming documentation, her position was precarious. The following morning, for the first time in 6 weeks, Karen's SUV did not occupy its blocking post in front of my mailbox. Nor did it appear the next day, or the day after that. Regular home delivery to my address resumed without delay, but the tale extends further. 2 weeks afterward, the HOA convened its scheduled monthly gathering. I attended my inaugural meeting since arriving in the neighborhood, intrigued to witness the developments. The community room was unusually crowded, attendance swelled by residents drawn by rumors of Karen's postal misadventure, everyone eager to observe the fallout. Karen occupied her seat at the board table, yet she appeared transformed. The impeccably styled hair and spotless blazer were absent. In their place was a weary, almost resigned figure. When the agenda reached new business, a senior board member, a gentleman named Frank, cleared his throat deliberately. "I move that we address the recent conduct of our current board president," he stated with formality, "particularly the misuse of authority to intimidate homeowners and the consequent federal scrutiny that has cast unfavorable light upon our association." Seconded. Another member interjected promptly. Karen attempted protest, but the proposal was already advanced. What ensued was 2 full hours of community members voicing long-suppressed complaints regarding Karen's authoritarian oversight. I learned I was far from her sole victim. Over the years, accounts emerged of baseless penalties, inconsistent rule application, and numerous personal grudges. When the removal vote was called, the result was unanimous. Karen was stripped of her presidency and prohibited from any board role for 5 years, yet that proved not the harshest consequence. The postal probe wrapped up, and although prosecutors declined to pursue a criminal indictment, Karen received a $25,000 civil penalty for obstructing mail service. Legal representation tacked on an additional $15,000 in fees. As the session closed and the outcome was declared, I observed Karen's composure fracture entirely. She rose unsteadily, collecting her belongings with trembling fingers. The assembled group watched in quiet as she proceeded toward the exit. Moments before departing, she paused and glanced back across the room, her gaze locking onto mine amid the attendees. "I trust this brings you satisfaction," she murmured, voice scarcely audible. "It does," I answered straightforwardly. "My mailbox functions perfectly now." She hurried from the venue, and no one ever spotted Karen at another HOA meeting thereafter. Word circulated that she listed her property for sale within a month, accepting a reduced price simply to escape the subdivision where she had become infamous as the neighbor whose mail was dispatched to Alaska.as. For myself, I retained my brushed steel mailbox, accented with blue. Not a single complaint has arisen since.